So Corey Graves made a statement on his After the Bell podcast, and there have been times a lot where Corey Graves has said some pretty controversial stuff, but he made a statement this past week about the women's tag team division, talking about like what's like really killing it, and I absolutely agree with him. So this is what Corey Graves said. So he said that I don't mean this as any disrespect to any of the women on Raw or SmackDown that compete for the women's tag team championships. I feel like that the lack of legit tag teams is what's killing that division. You have people that show up randomly that won a match and now they're a team. You got Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, who are the closest thing to a legit team. You also got Nia and Shane that have grown into that role, but it's just been a bunch of mashups of two random people competing for the championships, and I feel like that it's just never really allowed that division to shine and become a focus like I know it's capable of, but it's just like the men's tag team championships. They should be viewed on that same ground, but I find it hard to believe that it's going to achieve those heights until you have more legitimate teams holding the championships. Corey Graves, man, he's right. I know Corey Graves can say some stuff where it be like, oh, like, Corey, what the fuck are you talking about? But in this case, Corey Graves is absolutely right. This women's division, these titles, and we have been, this is something that when it was introduced in 2018, 2019, that people were saying, oh, this is going to be good for the women's division. That way the women don't have to fight over the Raw or SmackDown women's championships. They can go over to the women's tag team championships. And then you put it on Bayley and Sasha, who was a great tag team. And then a month later, they lose it at WrestleMania to the Iconics. Hell, Bianca and Sasha really, like, during their reign, they didn't even look strong during their reign. They had a match against Nia and Tamina, and they just got killed in that match. And I think it was at Fastlane they had the match, and then even they had it on Raw. And then Beth Phoenix came into the mix, Natalya, and then the Divas of Doom, and so you had a four-way, I guess, for the belts at Mania, and the Iconics won it. And the Iconics were holding the titles for a few months. And then the Iconics didn't really have a good reign, which sucks because they're decent in the ring, but they're entertaining as hell. So they have just done a terrible job booking the women's tag team titles. And it's sad because the women's tag team titles actually look like really good. And it just sucks, man. Dude, look who's the current women's tag team. Well, the previous, I should say. It was a random tag team of Charlotte and Asuka. That was a random tag team. And they didn't even get a longer reign with the belts. They just lose it a month later at the Royal Rumble. Back to Shayna and Nia. And Shayna and Nia, that was another put together group. But like Corey said, obviously they've been teaming for months now, so they've obviously fit into that role where they're a tag team. But let's be real, probably after WrestleMania, they're probably going to break up. So, yes, Dana Brooke and Mandy really is one of the most legitimate tag teams. And then the other legitimate tag team in the women's division is the Riot Squad, Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott. Those are really the only two women that they have in the women's tag team division that are legitimate. The other tag teams are put together, okay? Nia and Shayna are defending their championships against a pointless team of Naomi and Lana. And, and I don't got a problem with Naomi and Lana, but that's another put together tag team. They need to build legitimate tag teams for their women's division so you can actually get a stacked, and like Corey Graves said, a legitimate team, a legitimate division. And they're not even taking the women belt seriously. I mean, if they were really taking the women's tag team championship seriously, they wouldn't be on the kickoff show. They'll be on the main show. They need to build, you said it yourselves. it was going to be defended across not just Raw and SmackDown. Have them go down to NXT UK. I mean, NXT. You know, like, just build your women's division up. You know, use some of your Dusty Classic for the women and, you know, put them in the women's division. You know, like build them up. You know, the WWE needs to build because their women's tag team is just dead. No, tag team wrestling as a whole in the WWE is dead because there hasn't really been tag teams that have been built up. See, and this is why AEW has, and I know this has nothing to do with AEW really, but you know, this is quite the reason why AEW has the best, if not the best tag team in wrestling right now, because they put their built into these tag teams. You got tag teamers like Top Flight, The Acclaim, the Lucha Bros, the Young Bucks, FTR, Jurassic Express, that are actually, you know, that are legitimate. But then again, you know, Kenny and Hangman did win the belts and they were a put together tag team. But pretty much all their tag teams they're like legit. They're not put together. All the tag teams in WWE are really put together, especially in the women's division. That's what's killing your women's, well, not women's division, but your women's tag team division. If you weren't going to build some legit teams in your division, then what was the point of introducing the women tag team titles in the first place? And, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm hating because I'm not. I'm not trying to hate. I'm just saying, bro. I'm just saying. You have to put some legitimate tag teams in your women's division to make the women's tag team division more serious. Because when you look at it now, again, there's really, two really teams that you can name that are legitimate and not put together. Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose and the Riot Squad. All other tag teams are just put together and just teaming up for no really reason at all. Asuka and Charlotte, come on, they weren't going to be a tag team forever. We all obviously know what the payoff is. So that's the video, guys. So I just want to shout out Corey Graves for saying that. Corey Graves is absolutely true on that statement. And I'm glad that Corey Graves actually, well, someone at least spoke up about what is really killing this women's tag team division. So WWE, you're not watching this video, but if you do, build up your women's tag team division.